The woman collided with me so hard that my boarding pass flew across the airport floor. Before I could even bend down to pick it up, her trembling hand locked around my arm with surprising strength, and I felt her heartbeat racing through her grip. Her eyes were wide with panic, fixed on something behind me, and then she leaned close enough that I could hear the fear in every breath as she whispered, "Pretend you're my husband." In that single impossible moment, surrounded by travelers dragging suitcases and children laughing near the departure gates, I realized this wasn't confusion, a prank, or an awkward misunderstanding. Someone was watching her, and whatever she was running from had stolen every trace of safety from her face. That if you believe kindness, forgiveness, hope, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a heartfelt comment, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe to our channel so our community can continue sharing emotional stories that remind us humanity still exists. My name is Garrett Nolan, and until that morning, I believed. Airports were simply places where lives briefly crossed before separating forever. I was 38 years old, a civil engineer traveling to Portland for a bridge restoration project after spending 3 exhausting weeks caring for my late father's estate. Since losing him, silence had become my closest companion. My marriage had ended 2 years earlier, not because of betrayal but because grief had quietly replaced conversation. My ex-wife had once told me that I had forgotten how to let people matter. Those words had stayed with me longer than the marriage itself. The woman holding my arm looked no older than 32. Her ash-blonde hair was loosely tied back, though strands had escaped and clung to her damp forehead. She wore an ordinary blue sweater, jeans, and comfortable sneakers, yet nothing about her expression was ordinary. Fear had hollowed her eyes until they seemed almost transparent. She didn't look dangerous. She looked desperate. Without asking questions, I wrapped an arm gently around her shoulders the way a husband naturally might while waiting for a delayed flight. My heart pounded just as fast as hers, though I had no idea what I was protecting either of us from. A tall man in a charcoal jacket slowed several yards away. His attention settled on us for a long moment. His face remained calm, almost emotionless, but something about the way he stared made every instinct inside me tighten. He scanned both of us, hesitated, then finally continued walking toward another terminal corridor. Only after he disappeared did the woman begin breathing normally again. She introduced herself as Tessa Whitmore. Even speaking her own name seemed difficult. Tears threatened to spill, but she fought them back with remarkable determination. She apologized repeatedly for dragging me into something I didn't understand, then admitted she believed the man had been following her since she entered the airport parking garage. Most people might have walked away. They might have told airport security immediately and returned to their own plans. I probably should have done exactly that. Instead, something about the loneliness in her eyes reminded me of my own reflection after my father's funeral. It wasn't simply fear. It was the exhausted look of someone who had been carrying too much for far too long. Together we approached airport security officers and quietly explained what had happened. They immediately reviewed surveillance footage while asking careful questions. During those tense minutes, Tessa finally revealed the truth. She had spent nearly 4 years rebuilding her life after escaping an emotionally controlling relationship. Her former partner had never physically harmed her, but he had controlled her friendships, monitored her phone, manipulated her finances, and convinced her that every failure was her fault. When she finally left, she entered counseling, changed cities, and slowly reclaimed pieces of herself she believed were gone forever. Months earlier, mutual acquaintances informed her that the man had begun trying to locate her again. She ignored the warnings, believing enough time had passed. Then, 2 weeks before this trip, she started noticing unfamiliar cars near her apartment and receiving anonymous flowers with no cards attached. She had convinced herself she was imagining things until she saw him inside the airport that morning. Security eventually confirmed the man had indeed appeared unusually interested in her movements. Officers located him near another gate and questioned him. Without enough evidence to arrest him, they escorted him from the terminal and documented the encounter while increasing patrols around the boarding area. Tessa thanked every officer, but her hands continued shaking. Neither of us boarded our original flights, the airline rebooked us onto later departures because of the delay caused by the investigation. We found ourselves sitting near a large window overlooking the runways while bright afternoon sunlight reflected across the glass. Travelers hurried past, unaware that complete strangers had become unlikely allies within a single terrifying hour. Conversation arrived slowly. Tessa confessed she had once loved painting landscapes but abandoned every canvas during those difficult years because she had been told her dreams were childish. She admitted she still kept unopened boxes of art supplies hidden in her apartment closet because opening them felt like admitting she had survived. That I surprised myself by telling her about my father. I confessed that after his death, I buried myself in work because it was easier to repair bridges than repair my own heart. Somewhere between discussing delayed flights and paper coffee cups, we both realized we had become experts at surviving while forgetting how to live. Hours passed beneath the warm daylight pouring through enormous airport windows. Before boarding finally began, Tessa smiled for the first time. That it wasn't dramatic, that it wasn't perfect, that it was simply real. She thanked me for believing her without demanding proof. That I answered honestly that fear often tells the truth long before evidence catches up. We exchanged phone numbers almost as an afterthought, expecting we might never actually use them. Life, however, had other plans. 3 months later, I received a package. Inside rested a small painting. It showed an airport terminal bathed in golden afternoon sunlight. 2 tiny figures stood near the windows, almost impossible to notice unless someone looked carefully. On the back she had written only one sentence. "The day a stranger reminded me I wasn't alone anymore." The painting stayed above my desk. Over the following year, occasional messages turned into regular conversations. We never forced friendship. We simply allowed honesty to replace silence. She started painting professionally again, first selling artwork at local community fairs before eventually exhibiting pieces in regional galleries. Every success represented another brick removed from the invisible prison fear had built around her life. Meanwhile, I began volunteering at a grief support center on weekends. Listening to people who had lost parents, spouses, siblings, or children slowly changed me. I stopped pretending strength meant carrying every burden alone. Nearly 18 months after we first met, Tessa invited me to attend her first major gallery exhibition. Every painting captured ordinary people experiencing extraordinary moments of compassion. A firefighter comforting an elderly woman. A teacher tying a student's untied shoe. A cashier paying for forgotten groceries. A nurse sitting quietly beside an anxious patient. None of the paintings focused on heroes wearing capes. They celebrated ordinary people choosing kindness during ordinary afternoons. The final painting stood alone beneath soft natural light. It was the airport. The title simply read, "The Stranger Who Stayed." Visitors admired its colors without knowing the story behind it. I stood there longer than anyone else, not because I recognized myself, because I recognized hope. Tessa walked beside me and quietly admitted something she had never told another person. She confessed that when she grabbed my arm that day, she had almost chosen someone else standing closer to the entrance. At the last second, she noticed my face. She said I looked lonely but kind, like someone who understood pain without needing it explained. She believed that expression saved her life because it gave her courage to ask for help instead of continuing to run alone. Her words humbled me more than any award or promotion ever could. Sometimes we imagine life-changing moments arrive with applause, dramatic speeches, or impossible miracles. Sometimes they arrive with a frightened whisper inside a crowded airport during an ordinary afternoon. Years passed. Our friendship remained one of the greatest blessings either of us had ever received. People often assumed we eventually married. Life took a different path. Tessa later fell deeply in love with a compassionate school counselor named Rowan, a man who admired her resilience without defining her by her past. Watching them build a peaceful life together brought me genuine happiness because healing had taught me that love is never diminished by celebrating someone else's joy. For me, I eventually reconnected with my former wife, not to rebuild our marriage but to finally offer the apology I had buried beneath years of regret. We forgave one another for the silence that grief had created. We became friends again, proving that not every ending must become another wound point. One sunny afternoon, several years after the airport encounter, Tessa invited me to speak at a community event supporting survivors rebuilding their lives after emotional abuse. That I told everyone gathered there that courage doesn't always look fearless, sometimes courage looks like asking a complete stranger for help. Sometimes kindness looks like believing someone before every answer exists, sometimes healing begins. Because one ordinary person decides not to walk away. Before I finish this story, I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a meaningful comment sharing whether you believe one act of kindness from a stranger can truly change the course of someone's life, or tell us about a moment when someone unexpectedly restored your faith in humanity. As I drove home beneath the bright afternoon sky after that event, I thought back to the boarding pass sliding across the polished airport floor, the terrified hand gripping my arm, and the whisper that changed 2 lives forever. Neither of us found what we expected inside that airport terminal. She wasn't searching for a husband. I wasn't searching for purpose. Yet we both discovered something far greater than either destination printed on our tickets. We found proof that compassion offered at exactly the right moment can become the bridge carrying another human being from fear to freedom. Every person we pass may be carrying invisible battles we cannot see. A smile, a few moments of patience, a willingness to listen, or simply choosing to believe someone can become the turning point they remember for the rest of their life. The greatest miracles are rarely loud. More often, they begin with an ordinary decision to stand beside someone who feels completely alone. And sometimes, the stranger you help today becomes the reminder tomorrow that hope always finds a way back. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Until next time, may you always choose kindness when the opportunity appears, because you never truly know whose life might be transformed by the simple decision to stay.